Hi, Honest Discussioner here. My grandmother the other day uh, called to ask me about what I thought on the issue of tithing. For those of you that don't know, tithing is the giving of 10% of your funds or your salary, whatever you get, uh, to the church. Now, apparently, my grandmother is originally Greek Orthodox, and my mother um, converted to Pentecostalism, and thanks to my now ex-stepfather. My grandmother likes going to the church, and also like to the Pentecostal church, partially due to the fact she likes the people there. But she doesn't. There's a couple things that she doesn't like about the practices there, and she was wondering about the tithes because in my mother's church, they tell people, it's God's money. It's 10%. That's what you're supposed to give. That's what the Bible says. And on top of that, they are strongly encouraged to make a faith donation once a month to the missionaries. So I don't know exactly where in the Bible this is saying. My grandmother apparently was not convinced this was actually something that was biblical. That it was just something in the Old Testament and where this whole thing came from. And I didn't know how much they were really encouraging people to give money, but apparently it is substantial. And the Pentecostals are growing in number in other countries, and I think it's because they have enough money to send out all of these missionaries. Seems like a racket to me, kind of. But for those of you who know Archbishop Lazar of the Canadian Orthodox Church, All Saints Monastery, that's his YouTube name as well, All Saints Monastery, I asked him what his take was on this. It's Russian Orthodox, even though my grandmother was Greek Orthodox, but she wanted to know what his opinion was, and I asked him, and this is what I got in return. Some Pentecostal churches actually require members to present their T4 slips, which are income tax assessment slips in Canada, to ensure they had given a full 10%. If anyone knows exactly what he's talking about, if anyone knows of the church that requires that, I'd really like to know that information, but I don't want to bug him anymore. Continuing. It is one thing for someone who earns $4,000 a month to give $400, leaving them with only $3,600. Another for someone who is earning $1,000 a month, leaving them with only $900. Or any other relative amounts. There is no requirement in the New Testament to give a tenth. In the Hebrew Scriptures, the 10% referred to farm crops and newborn livestock. This was important because the Levites, who formed the priesthood, had not been given any land of their own and could not grow their own food for themselves and their families. Thus, the other tribes who had been given land were given the obligations of caring for the needs of the landless Levites. Any money that was given could be used for the upkeep and maintenance of the temple, but the tithe was in produce and farm animals. Now, here's the thing. I get the impression that Pentecostals are probably the most fervently Christian, and yet at the same time, the most not actually Christian you can possibly get. And I think this is something that shows this. You have two choices here. Either the pastor is unaware of this and he is ignorant that the original intention was this, and he's telling, and he's under the false impression, which would beg the question why God isn't straightening him up there and saying, "Oh, hey, by the way," and leading him to the knowledge that he's not telling his congregation something that's true, or he's just flat out lying to them in order to get money. Now, maybe he thinks that it's for a good cause, so, the ends justify the means. I don't know, but I don't see any other possibilities here. Either he's an ignorant pastor, and I don't think that's going to be good, or he's lying to his congregation and my family on top of that. So, I'm wondering if there's anything we can do about this. I'm wondering if I should maybe email the pastor himself and ask him what his take on this is. I'm wondering if we should start emailing a lot of Pentecostal churches and seeing if this is what they're doing and what their thoughts on this are, because for me, they're using the money of their congregation to become more powerful and more influential throughout the world. Maybe it is actually to spread the gospel. I'm sure there's certain members of the church that are giving for that reason and collecting for just specifically that reason, to bring the light of Christ or whatnot. But I'm sure there's at least a couple people that are doing it just for the money and just the power. So tell me if you have any thoughts on this, because I think something could be done and should be done if possible. Have a nice day. Honest Discussion.